Oenone by Alfred Lord Tennyson. There lies a vale in Ida, lovelier than all the valleys of Ionian hills. The swimming vapour slopes athwart the glen, puts forth an arm and creeps from pine to pine, and loiters slowly drawn. On either hand the lawns and meadow-ledges midway down hang rich in flowers, and far below them roars the long brook falling through the clov'n ravine, in cataract after cataract to the sea. Behind the valley topmost Gargarus stands up and takes the morning, but in front the gorges, opening wide apart, reveal Troas and Ilion's columned citadel, the crown of Troas. Hither came at noon Mournful Oenone, wandering forlorn, of Paris, once her playmate on the hills. Her cheek had lost the rose, and round her neck floated her hair, or seemed to float in rest. She, leaning on a fragment twined with vine, sang to the stillness, till the mountain shade sloped downward to her seat from the upper cliff. O Mother Ida, many-fountained Ida, dear Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. I waited underneath the dawning hills. Aloft the mountain lawn was dewy dark, and dewy dark aloft the mountain pine. Beautiful Paris, evil-hearted Paris, leading a jet-black goat, white-horned, white-hooved, came up from reedy Simois all alone. Dear Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. He smiled, and opening out his milk-white palm, disclosed a fruit of pure Hesperian gold that smelt ambrosially, and while I looked and listened, the full-flowing river of speech came down upon my heart. My own Oenone, beautiful-browed Oenone, my own soul, behold this fruit whose gleaming rind, engraven for the most fair, would seem to award it thine, as lovelier than whatever aureate haunt the knolls of Ida, loveliest in all grace of movement and the charm of married brows. Dear Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. He pressed the blossom of his lips to mine, and added, this was cast upon the board, when all the full-faced presence of the gods ranged in the hall of Peleus, and whereupon rose feud with questions unto whom 'twere due. But Lightfoot Iris brought it yester-eve, delivering that to me by common voice, elected umpire. Here comes today Pallas and Aphrodite, claiming each this mead of fairest. Thou, within the cave, beyond yon whispering tuft of oldest pine, mayst well behold them unbeheld, unheard, hear all, and see thy Paris judge of gods. Dear Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. It was the deep mid-afternoon. One silvery cloud had lost his way between the piney sides of this long glen. Then to the bower there came, naked they came, to that smooth-swathed bower, and at their feet the crocus brake like fire, violet, amaracus and asphodel, lotus and lilies and a wind arose, and overhead the wandering ivy and vine. This way and that, in many a wild festoon, ran riot, garlanding the gnarled boughs with bunch and berry and flower through and through. O Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. On the tree-tops a crested peacock lit, and o'er him flowed a golden cloud, and leaned upon him, slowly dropping fragrant dew. Then first I heard a voice of her to whom, coming through heaven like a light that grows larger and clearer, with one mind the gods rise up for reverence. She to Paris made proffer of royal power, ample rule, unquestioned, overflowing revenue, wherewith to embellish state, from many a vale and river sundered champaign clothed with corn, all laboured mine undrainable of ore. Honour, she said, and homage, tax and toll, from many an inland town and haven large, mass-thronged beneath her shadowing citadel, in glassy bays among her tallest towers. O Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. Still she spake on, and still she spake of power, which in all action is the end of all, power fitted to the season, wisdom bred, and throned of wisdom from all neighbour crowns, alliance and allegiance, till thy hand fail from the sceptre staff. Such boon from me, heaven's queen Paris, to thee king born, a shepherd all thy life, but yet king born, should come most welcome, seeing men in power only are likest gods who have attained rest in a happy place and quiet seats above the thunder, with undying bliss and knowledge of their own supremacy. Dear Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. She ceased, and Paris held the costly fruit out at arm's length. So much the thought of power flattered his spirit, but Pallas where she stood, somewhat apart, her clear and bared limbs, o'erthwarted with the brazen-headed spear upon her pearly shoulder leaning cold, and while above her full and earnest eye, over her soft cold breast and angry cheek, kept watch, waiting decision, made reply. Self-reverence, self-knowledge, self-control, these three alone lead life to sovereign power. Yet not for power. Power of herself would come uncalled for, but to live by law, acting the law we live by without fear, because right is right, to follow right, where wisdom in the scorn of consequence. Dear Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. Again she said, I woo thee not with gifts, sequel of good, and could not alter me to fairer. Judge thou me by what I am, so shalt thou find me fairest. Yet, indeed, if gazing on divinity disrobed, thy mortal eyes are frail to judge the fair, unbiased by self-profit, O rest thee sure, that I shall love thee well and cleave to thee, so that my vigour, wedded to thy blood, shall strike within thy pulses like a god's, and push thee forward through a life of shocks, dangers and deeds, until endurance grow, sinewed with action and the full-grown will, circled through all experiences, pure law, co-measure perfect freedom. Here she ceased, and Paris pondered, and I cried, O Paris, give it to Pallas. But he heard me not, or hearing would not hear me. Woe is me! O Mother Ida, many-fountained Ida, dear Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. Idalian Aphrodite, beautiful, fresh as the foam, new-bathed in Paphian wells, with rosy, slender fingers backward drew from her warm brows and bosom her deep hair, ambrosial, golden round her lucid throat and shoulder. From the violets her light foot shone rosy white, and o'er her rounded form, between the shadows of the vine bunches, floated the glowing sunlights as she moved. Dear Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. She with a subtle smile in her mild eyes, the herald of her triumph drawing nigh, half whispered in his ear, I promise thee the fairest and most loving wife in Greece. She spoke and laughed. I shut my sight for fear, but when I looked, Paris had raised his arm, and I beheld great Here's angry eyes as she withdrew into the golden cloud, and I was left alone within the bower. And from that time to this I am alone, and I shall be alone until I die. Yet, Mother Ida, hearken ere I die. Fairest wife, am I not fair? My love has told me so 1,000 times. Methinks I must be fair, for yesterday when I passed by, a wild and wanton pard, eyed like the evening star with playful tail, crouched fawning in the weed. Most loving is she, me, my mountain shepherd, that my arms were wound about thee, and my hot lips pressed, close to thine, in that quick falling dew of fruitful kisses, thick as autumn rains, flash in the pools of whirling simois.